Ladies and gentlemen, we need to talk. And that talk involves one certain player by the name of Philippe Coutinho. What has happened to Coutinho? You may have forgot, but Coutinho still plays for Aston Villa. You may have not noticed him because most people don't. Coutinho scored against Arsenal in the final game before the recent international break, and for many, that was the first time that they even remembered that Coutinho still played for Aston Villa. That is because that is his first goal or assist in the entirety of the 22-23 season. This is the same player that went from Liverpool to Barcelona for a staggering £105 million, which is an absurd amount of money for a player who at the time was seen to be the best attacking midfielder in world football. Prior to Coutinho going to Barcelona in the 2016-17 Liverpool season in the Premier League, he played 28 games and scored 13 goals and got 7 assists. In 17-18 was at the top of his game, 13 starts in Premier League with 7 goals and 6 assists. So how can Coutinho go from being the next Neymar at Barcelona to becoming an impact sub at Aston Villa, all in a span of 4 years? Well, let's get into the video. If you guys do enjoy, then please do smash a like button and also subscribe if you're new. Also, a massive shout out to the Patreons of the channel. Thank you all for supporting the channel and just being absolute heroes, so thank you all so much. And of course, thank you for the support on my design website, Vizeh Designs. If you want to spice up your room with some football art designs that I have made myself, celebrating the most iconic goals in world football or for your football club, then go down below at the top of the description to mozilladesigns.co.uk. And right now, if you use code DINI at checkout, you get 10% off. And let's get into the video. Instead of an end of an era, it is the end of an era. That was the feeling when Philippe Coutinho finally left Barcelona to join Aston Villa for £20 million after a relatively decent loan spell at the club. One of the most disappointing stints for any player at any club in football history. Coutinho signed a 4.5-year contract for Barcelona and signed for an initial £105 million fee with a potential £142 million with add-ons. Coutinho was dealt with a very tough situation at Barcelona, where he was put in a situation of trying to replace and fill the shoes of a Neymar-ridden Barcelona. The hole that was left when Neymar left Barcelona to PSG was widening, and Barcelona tried all they can to try to resolve this by bringing in the likes of Coutinho for £105 million and even Ousmane Dembele for an even more staggering £120 million. In his time as Barcelona, Coutinho scored 41 times in 160 games, which doesn't sound too bad. It's just that only 26 of those goals were for Barcelona, and 2 of them came against Barcelona, notoriously for Bayern Munich, in the most humiliating result in the club's history, an 8-2 defeat in the Champions League quarter-finals in August 2020. Was it all Coutinho's fault for his performances? Not really. He was never what Barcelona needed him to be. When Neymar left Barcelona, it left 2 problems. First, Neymar was the club's future at that time period and was the youngest of the famous Messi, Suarez and Neymar front line. And the assumption was, when they signed Neymar, was that he was there to replace the great Messi when his time came and to lead them to the next generation. With Neymar gone, they had a massive hole in that team and needed another young-ish creator similar to the mould of Neymar to fill that role. And a certain Brazilian, funnily enough, filled that description relatively well. And the second problem that Neymar left was that there was a sense of embarrassment at Barcelona. Barcelona was supposed to be the world's elite. Barcelona and Real Madrid for the longest time in football history were the go-to place for any footballer that wants to play at the top of the game. They were the prized asset, the crown jewel of football. So when Barcelona got nudged aside by a rival in PSG, they had a chip on their shoulder and they had a point to prove to PSG, and they had a lot of money to try to resolve it. So that is what happened. They had the money and they had an imperative to spend it and to blow the lot on a couple of stars to make a point. Liverpool played the situation perfectly, knowing that Barcelona had a massive kitty that they knew that if they were desperate enough, they would spend the money that Liverpool required. And they dragged it enough to make sure that they had enough money to bring in not only one, but two players that you may have heard of that are key to Liverpool's team in Virgil van Dijk and Ederson. And speaking of Liverpool, we need to remember what Coutinho was so good at Liverpool that changed at Barcelona. At Liverpool, he played in the left of a 4-3-3 as a left winger of sorts, but he was the main and sole provider and creator for that team. Almost everything that was good came through him, making him the main man to link up play and had freedom to really do whatever he wanted in that team. Coutinho started on the left and then usually drifts inside to influence play, playing with both Roberto Firmino and Sadio Mane at a time, and they all switched roles, making it much more of a nightmare for the defenders to try to keep up and mark out players. At Liverpool, he averaged more key passes per 90 minutes, he also had more successful dribbles per 90 minutes, and he also contributed to their pressing game too, by putting in the work for successful tackles and also the same number of interceptions as the forward 3-2. As quoted by Jurgen Klopp after a 4-2 win over Crystal Palace, saying, "He's now 24, his work rate is outstanding. That's how it is. You can't buy a genius every day." And now we compare this to Barcelona, which he had his debut in a Copa del Rey against Espanyol and had a promising start. A few nice touches and even a nutmeg that delighted the fans of their new hero that they were so desperate to take in. But with the departure of Iniesta and Neymar at a time period, that was two big gaps in the team, and Coutinho, even though he had quality, was neither of those two, and nor was even a hybrid of those two. As quoted by many Barcelona journalists, saying, with his reluctance to press and his inconsistency, he had come to seem something of a luxury, and this was a Barcelona side whose aging midfield was already struggling to cover for an increasingly indulgent forward line. When Coutinho went to Barcelona, it became a massive problem that everything had to revolve around Messi, and can you blame them? Messi is Lionel Messi. Of course he's going to be the main man. However, with Coutinho now becoming much more of a side piece in part of his system, you kind of found him to be in the same positions as Lionel Messi and almost getting in the way at times. That became an issue, and because he tried too hard to not do what he would naturally do that made him succeed at Liverpool, he then became more anonymous and really faded away from a vast majority of football matches. This was one of the biggest complaints that Barcelona fans had with Coutinho. There was too many times that he simply faded away in games, and maybe there were also times that he tried to impress and he tried to do too much because of the pressure by trying to fill Neymar's shoes, or by the price tag that was unfairly put onto him because he never asked to be bought for £105 million, but that is what happened. And when he got the ball, sometimes he tried to do a bit too much to try to show himself and to prove his worth, which at times could cause a mistake by him doing what he usually wouldn't do. This will decrease his confidence, and therefore with decreased confidence he would then play worse, which then makes his confidence even worse, which then became a death spiral with Coutinho at Barcelona. That is when it became more embarrassing, when Barcelona met Liverpool in the semi-finals of the 2019 Champions League, when Coutinho was mocked by fans of both teams, and in both games he was taken off around an hour. After a decent loan spell at Aston Villa, Barcelona and Coutinho finally parted ways, with Xavi looking to move on the remains of what was in the past and their high earners. Coutinho has just turned the age of 30 and really should still be at the top of his game. So there is a danger that Coutinho is now entering the James Rodriguez pathway, too skillful and expensive for the vast majority of football clubs, but lacking in the sense of defensive responsibility required by the very elite in modern football. So when we saw James Rodriguez go to Everton and then had a fantastic start and then faded away, it looks like that same story could be happening with Coutinho at Aston Villa. We all know there was a great player there. We saw it when he was poor at Barcelona, but then went to Bayern Munich and became a great part of the system and played fantastically. Went back to Barcelona, wasn't the greatest again, and then went to Aston Villa and was really good for Aston Villa for his loan spell, at least for the first 1 or 2 months, and then faded away again. In no way should Coutinho be an impact sub at mini clubs, never mind a mid-table one in Premier League, and no way should he have only 1 goal and 0 assists in almost an entire season, which is just incredible. We have spoke recently about Dele Alli, and that when footballers may make it to a stage in their career where they have made it, they've already achieved all they can do, they've got the money, they've got the success, they've completed all they need to complete. That motivation, that drive to get better or to keep playing at your very best can kick in, and it is something that you see quite often in football, and I would not be surprised if we see the likes of Coutinho playing in Qatar or in Saudi Arabia or MLS. But let's be honest, he's definitely playing in Qatar soon, because that is just what usually happens. I mean, we've seen that with James Rodriguez, and I think the same thing will happen to Coutinho in the next year. Barcelona fans, Liverpool fans, tell me, what are your thoughts on Coutinho? I do think there was a factor of that drive, that will to compete and to get better. I do think that that has faded, and that does happen quite often with some footballers, that once they reach a certain level of money or success in the sport, that they feel like they don't need to prove themselves anymore, and they just go on autopilot. I hope you guys did enjoy my little rambling on Coutinho here. I really want to see him do well, but I do think that it is a bit too late for him in the Premier League, and that is a shame. So yeah, tell me your thoughts down below. Subscribe if you are new. Like the video as well. Let's try to hit 2,500 likes. And of course, if you guys want to spice up your room, mazzoladesigns.co.uk, my design company. Check it out. Use code Dini for 10% off. And I'll see you next time.